to knowledge resources, author insights. Today, we're sitting down with Dave van der Merwe to discuss his new book, Your Leadership Footprint, How Will You Be Remembered? Dave has himself been a leader for many years, and his experience includes having been the Associate Director at Deloitte Consulting, the Financial Director at Stefanuti Stocks, as well as having been both the Support Director and Financial Director at Murray & Roberts. He is now a Senior Executive at Mac Consulting, and we are so pleased to have him here today and to have the opportunity to pick the brain of a truly versatile leader. Dave, congratulations on the new book, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Amy.
Why don't we start off with a brief overview of the book? Could you tell us what is it about and what does it entail?
Amy, the book is intended to be a practical leadership handbook and is structured around a series of key themes and questions. Some of the key themes are self-awareness as a leader, leading strategic change, unlocking talent potential, thinking strategically, stakeholder management, enabling execution, and driving results. And the book has 12 chapters around these key themes, all from a leadership perspective, and each chapter has 5 reflective questions for the leader to contemplate. And those reflective questions and the awareness thereof are only perhaps the starting point. What's really important is taking action, which will then drive leadership or executive effectiveness.
The book itself has been very engaging for me to read as well, but leadership currently is such a contentious topic, and there are many great leadership books out there. Why would you say this book is different?
I think leadership in itself seems deceptively simple to explain, but yet in its essence, it's a multifaceted and it's generally quite complex. So this book deliberately seeks to be more simple and light on theory, but in essence, it is designed as a practical handbook. And each reflective question that we touched on earlier is supported with information around a key message in response to that question, an action phrase, so something that you can do something about, observations on the question, and some practical tools. So I think what also makes it useful is the relatively short chapters, so it makes it easily digestible and practical, that you can just go back to whatever question or topic that you had.
That's actually such a fantastic approach, because I think so many people are just intimidated by leadership as a concept. And you've made it so digestible and approachable in such a practical way. I would like to know what led you to writing the book and why write it now?
Thanks, Amy. I've always wanted to write a leadership book the last sort of 10, 12 years. However, trying to distill the essence of leadership into a thought-provoking and practical book, it always felt a little bit intimidating. Being a self-published author of 3 fiction novels certainly made the prospect of writing a leadership book a lot less daunting. And I suppose the concept for this book really emerged from an executive program which I completed through UCT, which highlighted the incredible value of asking powerful questions. So I've been also privileged to work with many leaders throughout my career, particularly C-suite leaders in recent years, through a variety of leadership interventions. And when I sat back and reflected on those numerous conversations with many great leaders around the world, I realized that I gained invaluable insights into what great leaders do, what poor leaders can teach us, and how to leverage that for my own success. And I suppose the result of all of that is Your Leadership Footprint, the new book, which is now being launched.
And I love that perspective as well. I haven't seen many leadership books that really look at the legacy you leave behind. There's a lot about what we're doing now, but there's not a lot about what we leave behind. So I'm very excited for leaders everywhere to get a hold of this book and really dive into that. Based on that, what could these leaders, the readers, expect to get out of the book once they do get their hands on it?
My sincere hope is that this book encourages readers to grow in their own leadership journey and provide them with some insights and practical tools to navigate the many critical moments that will ultimately define their path to success and, in due course, significance. And seeing that you touched on significance, the book does end with your plan A, so what after your formal career. But also hope that the book will serve as a practical leadership companion that will provide readers with some advice, tangible solutions to leadership challenges, that will hopefully smooth their leadership journey. So hopefully seen as a very practical handbook for leaders from a sort of a leadership executive perspective.
And one of the things that I think makes it so practical is, and you've touched on it already, is the questions that you have at the beginning of each chapter. It's so engaging and it really pulls you into the book and really makes it part of your growth process as a leader. What made you decide to use this approach of self-reflective questions? And are there any questions that stand out to you?
Yeah, my sense was that there are many leadership books are one directional, so they share a whole lot of information with you. I wanted to create a book that required leaders to reflect on their own leadership role and thereby engage with the content on a much more personal basis. And hopefully the reflective questions do just that. So which question, I think a lot of questions, but maybe the book's subtitle is one that sort of really resonates for me. How will you be remembered? And I think the first question in the book is also a really important one. Are you living a balanced life? And I think we often hear work-life balance, but I say, are you living a balanced life? So you put life into perspective, into balance, and let work be a subset of that. So those two questions do stand out for me.
I really do like the question of work-life balance as well, because there's a huge perception that to be a successful leader, you almost have to be at the edge of burnout all the time. It's a strange concept that we have about leaders, is that the ultra successful are always stressed or burnt out. So I'm happy that you've challenged that. And it's one of the questions that I also resonated with a lot in the book. Just coming to a final question now, as a more general value add for our leaders in South Africa today, what would you say is your top advice for leaders today?
Amy, I think there's one piece of advice that certainly stands out for me, and that is to back yourself and don't let anyone else define who you are. It's fascinating how many leaders often doubt themselves, but I've just got a simple expression for that: back yourself. And I think that's often a key stepping stone. But I suppose building on that, there are a few leadership golden threads that come through the book that would just support that one piece of advice. Maybe just a couple of those like key golden threads that come through is living a balanced life, really important as a leader. Your plan for significance, what are you going to do beyond success? The importance of always being authentic and human, especially after COVID, being empathetic and human is fundamental. How you show up as a leader is really fundamental. Creating quality thinking time to shape the building blocks to an effective future. And you touched on, on the edge of burnout. The reality is you can be very effective in a shorter period of time by creating quality thinking time, asking powerful questions, being deliberate and intentional, and taking appropriate action. And often people think about it, but don't necessarily act on that. One or two other key points, maybe focusing on what really matters and owning the narrative for that. Unlocking the potential and discretionary energy of your people. Being an enabler for the whole ecosystem to flourish could be another one. And maybe final one is working on the business versus working in the business and knowing when to be where. So a couple of key points, and it's quite a mouthful when you listen to that, but hopefully when you read through the book, you'll be able to pack some of those key golden threads that would add to that one piece of advice about backing yourself.
Well, that's just incredible insights that you have. And I'm sure our leaders will learn even more as they go through the book, as you've mentioned. And I've really enjoyed this opportunity to be able to pick the brain of someone who's really been a leader and seen leadership in action to the extent that you have. So I'd like to thank you so much for joining us, Dave. It really has been an interesting conversation and a great look at what I'm sure will be a guide for many leaders. The book launch for Your Leadership Footprint, How Will You Be Remembered, will be happening virtually on the 18th of August. So if you'd like to attend that or order a copy of the book, you can do so by using the links in the description.